There we go. All right. So hopefully, let's see. That works. That's good. What else? Is everything else good? I think everything else is good. All right. So welcome, everyone. This time for real. I'm hoping everything is good now. So let's see here. Let's start our first segment with Fox News Martha MacCallum. All right, here we go. Oh, it's working fine. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to know. Fox News host Martha MacCallum recently interviewed Eric Trump, and she asked some great questions, but under this obvious pro-Trump tone. I think this is really interesting because the questions are actually really good questions, and they kind of throw off Eric Trump, at least off his feet. But he kind of brushes it off because Martha's like pro-Trump. She has this pro-Trump tone. He wouldn't have answered these questions. Just keep this in mind. He wouldn't have answered these questions if anyone else asked him these questions. So it's because of Martha's pro-Trump tone that he answered these really challenging questions. So take a look at how he stumbles and he relies on whataboutism in this interview and how Martha subtly attacks Trump without looking like she's attacking Trump. Take a look.
That your family has made money since the president was elected off of the Trump International Hotel in New York. There's an Indonesia project. You know, people push back and say, well, you're also making money off of being the president's son. I know
we got out of business when my father became commander-in-chief. The difference is all these other kids were getting into business when their parents took positions. I can tell you, we know all the hedge fund managers in New York. We know all these powerful people. China gives no one any money. They're very, very – you can't get 2 cents out of China. But yet Hunter Biden, who gets kicked out of the Navy, who has bad drug problems, who has a lot of other scandals following him around, gets $1.5 billion from China. He's miraculously put on a board of a company in an industry that he knows nothing about with no duties. He doesn't speak the language. Give me a break. Right? Well, the average income in this country is about $50,000 a year, right? Average. He's making $50,000 a month sitting on the board of a company not doing anything. You don't think people can read through it? And why do you think Nancy Pelosi's son is on the board of an oil and gas company?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that there have been a lot of families who have benefited politically from their family members' positions in Washington and end up on these boards. And I think it's a very legitimate question to raise about what their background was and what constitutes their ability to advise these boards based on their background. It's a very legitimate question. China says they're not interested in looking into this whole thing. But as you rightly point out,
they were paying people off.
If Joe Biden, if this continues, this impeachment process continues, there are going to be more questions about what happened in Ukraine and what happened in China than there would have been if they hadn't.
Let's put them all on the stand. Let's put Joe Biden on the stand. Let's put Hunter Biden on the stand. They're nowhere to be found.
Before I let you go, I want to put this up. This is one tweet that your dad sent out. The president, Mr. Trump, said, "I think that crooked Hillary Clinton should enter the race and try to steal it away from uber-left Elizabeth Warren. Only one condition: the crooked one must explain all of her high crimes and misdemeanors, including how and why she deleted 30,000 emails after getting a subpoena." And Hillary Clinton responded to that with this: "Don't tempt me. Do your job," she says.
It's interesting. I'd love to see her run again. I'd love to see her run again.
Sounds like the president would like to see her run again, too.
It's amazing. And by the way, another person who perjured themselves and committed massive amounts of crimes who never answered for it. And believe me, if I deleted 33,000 emails, if I deleted 33, and not being in government, I'd be in jail right now. And it's a shame that there's a double standard in this country. And believe me, the people of this country see through it. And that's why you're going to see 50,000 people in an Iridium in, Minnesota in another couple of days.
Yeah, that's another thing. Before I let you go, $500,000 for they're charging the campaign for security. Is that going to happen? Are you going to pay that money?
And it's interesting. The mayor of Minneapolis charged Obama, I think it was $26,000 right, for the exact same arena. So, I mean, these are the games that these people play, and people see through it, and it's ridiculous, and we're going to fight it, and Martha, we are going to win. My father has done an unbelievable job for this country. He's going to keep it going, and this is a distraction. We're going to win this thing again, and the American people are going to speak, and This is just a pure act of desperation, to say the least.
We'll be watching.
That was like really tense. And Eric Trump had no idea what was going on. Like, you can see him just like, stop asking the hard questions. You're not supposed to ask the hard questions. And like at one point he went like you could see him like reel in quite a bit because he was not ready at all. So her first question was about how Eric Trump is making money from Trump hotels based on Trump's foreign policy meetings and deals. And so he goes, well, what aboutism? What aboutism? What about Hillary Clinton? What about Joe Biden? What about Hunter Biden? What about Obama? All of that was in that one video. It's like, answer the damn questions. The question was about, her first question was about how Eric Trump is making money from Trump hotels based on Trump's foreign policy meeting and deals. Had nothing to do with Hillary Clinton, with Obama, with Joe Biden. Now, I understand how you can like try to shrug off the how serious of a problem it is that you're profiting off based off of how Joe Biden's son was profiting in Ukraine. I think there's something there. I really do. But I'm not going to use that to defend myself, because if you're crapping on Joe Biden, but then you do the very thing that he does, you're crapping on yourself. It's really simple. Eric Trump's response was, quote, we got out of business when my father became commander-in-chief. But the executives of the Trump organization are currently Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. What do you mean you got out of business? Not only did you not answer the question, but you straight up lied. Now, yes, Trump supposedly separated himself with the Trump organization by giving his company to Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. But that means your father left the business. Not you, Eric. Not you. You are still in the business. You own it. You run the business. I'm not sure why you'd pretend that you don't. He then went on to talk about how messed up it is that Hunter Biden can make millions in a foreign board. That has nothing to do with the question. Though. The question is about how Eric Trump makes money from President Trump's meetings with foreign leaders. Talking about Biden's son is just whataboutism to a T. After Eric Trump's ramble, though, the Fox News host plays this passive-aggressive role where she makes fun of people that benefit from their dad in general. But she's talking to you, Eric. You don't see it because you can't get the money out of your eyes. You don't see that because you're on Fox News. You think, oh, Martha, she's pro-Trump. She wouldn't ask me any hard questions, right? You wouldn't expect passive-aggressive communication like that. But dude, you have to pay attention. You just got roasted alongside Hunter Biden. You just got framed as low as Hunter Biden. Think about that. Like, I want you to watch the video again, though, before Martha brings up Trump and Clinton's tweet. Like, take a look at that. You can see how Eric started to realize he was getting owned through passive aggressive attacks. Look at his frustration. It's like you could see him reel it in eventually. It's just like, whoa, dude, like, be prepared. You're going on Fox News. There are interviewers that will every once in a while challenge you, and you should have something better than, oh, well, you know, I just do the same thing that Hunter Biden does in terms of corruption, so I guess I'm not that bad. It's just awesome. Now, after Martha showed Clinton's tweet that said, quote, don't tempt me, which is a joke in and of itself. I could do a whole segment on that tweet alone. Eric Trump immediately jumps on the whataboutism train with Hillary Clinton. I get that there are corrupt Democrats, but their existence doesn't justify your father's illegal activity and your financial benefit from your dad's foreign policy meetings. And then later on in the interview, Eric Trump talked about putting all of these people on the stand. He said, let's put them all on the stand. Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Hillary Clinton. Okay. First of all, you're on that list. You should be on that list. But second of all, you can do that. Put them on the stand. Conduct your investigation. Conduct an investigation. Have Trump conduct an investigation. Your dad had control of all three branches of government for 2 years. Why didn't he investigate anything? Why didn't he investigate anything? Why does he first go to foreign governments? Why doesn't he just ask the Department of Justice to conduct an investigation? He controls the Department of Justice. He's head of the executive branch. He's in charge of the executive branch. Now you might say that there's some, you hear these Republicans, they'll say, oh, the deep state. It's the deep state. They won't let him investigate. The deep state is trying to prevent him from doing anything or whatever. But here's the thing, right wingers, being the head of the DOJ means that you get to pick who leads it. If you think there's some deep state, then fire the head and hire another person. Maybe hire someone who will figure out the members of the supposed deep state and fire them. And then conduct an investigation. But he didn't do that. He didn't investigate. He didn't fire anyone from the DOJ. Well, we can get into that. But he didn't fire anyone because of the deep state. He never fired anyone but he blames his own organization for the deep state every time he goes on with Sean Hannity. You know why? Because that's a stupid political calculation to actually follow through with, and a great talking point to keep in a Fox News interview, Eric. Last point. Martha subtly attacked Trump for paying $500,000 for security. $500,000. But again, Eric Trump jumps right on the whataboutism train and talks about how it's ironic that Martha would even bring that up. Why would you even bring that up? Because Obama paid $50,000, or was it? No, $26,000. $50,000. I think it was $50,000 for security. $26,000. That's what it was. He paid $26,000 for security. So I guess it's okay for Trump to spend $500,000. Obama spent $26,000. So apples and apples, right? But Eric, that's the point. You're making Martha's point. You're too stupid to see that. Trump pays $500,000 and Obama paid $26,000. Eric thinks he landed with this gotcha, got him, I got him. But Obama, but he didn't realize that he just shot himself in the foot with a massive self-own. The idea is that $500,000 is a lot more than $26,000. That makes Obama look good and Trump bad in this case. Why are you acting like you won here, Eric? He was just too stupid to realize that Martha completely threw him and Trump under a bus while maintaining this tone that she is 100% in favor of Trump. I think it was brilliant. That's my opinion. This interview needs a lot more attention, though, than it's getting, because Martha isn't attacking from the right. She's attacking from the left while pretending that she's attacking from the right. That's brilliant. That's almost like a spy in Fox News for progressives. And I give her some credit for that. All right, we're back. We're gonna do a quick little break thing here, so I will be right back.
Real change. The top on down, but always from the bottom on up.
Bernie Sanders' healthcare for all idea is gaining steam.
Free tuition champion, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders added, the greatest threat to national security is climate change.
The future of our planet at stake.
Sanders taking on Amazon.
Bernie Sanders has been consistent hammering about income inequality.
No 5 hours a week should be living in poverty. So our economy is rigged. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt.
Sanders leading the charge.
The first time ever the Senate has voted to end authorized war.
The fight against injustice has been the work of his life.
Jobs and education, not jails. We are not going to retreat on women's rights.
Sanders pushing a bold agenda that includes protecting DACA recipients and comprehensive immigration reform.
You don't rip little children away from the arms of their mother.
A major announcement from Amazon. Amazon will raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. 350,000 workers.
Thousands of workers at Disney World will get raises. It's a victory for Bernie Sanders.
It's a victory for all workers. Brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work in front of us. If we are prepared to stand together, there is no end to what the great people of our nation can accomplish.
No, there ain't no stopping us. Fly without boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I'll be moving fast. Call me a shooting star. Let 'em know who you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. Time to show 'em who's in charge. Call me a shooting star. Didn't even get to cross. I said I'm moving too far. Getting close.
Ben Shapiro is tactically trying to pretend that Democrats are confused about what it is that Trump did that deserves impeachment. Basically, Ben is trying to strawman the Democrats and pretending that the story keeps changing to make it seem like Democrats are seeking for impeachable offenses because Trump is a, quote, poo-poo head. He actually says this in the segment. Those are his words in this video. No joke. Rather than impeaching Trump because of a crime has already been committed. So take a look at this video and then we'll talk about it.
The theory of impeachment keeps changing. So back on Thursday and Friday, the theory of impeachment seemed to still be sort of that President Trump had engaged in a quid pro quo with the Ukrainian government in which he basically threatened to withhold aid, American aid, military aid to Ukraine in exchange for the Ukrainian government checking out his chief domestic political opponent, Joe Biden. Well, as it turns out, over the past couple of days, it appears, and I'm just catching up on the news, it appears that the theory of impeachment is now changing. It is malleable. That Democrats weren't able to come up with the quid pro quo they were seeking on the specific transcript of this phone call that Trump had with Ukraine. And so now they are attempting to construct another impeachment-based crime, and that would be obstruction of justice. They are trying to come up with some rationale why they can blame the Trump administration for blocking the investigation. Now, Doesn't matter that the Trump administration turned over the transcript. Doesn't matter they turned over the whistleblower report. Doesn't matter that the witnesses who have been requested by the House thus far have basically been scheduled, so far as I can tell, including the former ambassador to Ukraine, as well as other officials, American officials from the State Department who are active in Ukraine. Still, the Democrats are pushing forward with the idea that if we can't get them for the underlying crime, we'll get President Trump for obstruction. That seems to be one angle. And then there's the generalized Democratic angle, and you can see this happening in the press, which is that impeachment isn't truly about what Trump did here. Impeachment isn't truly about any specific criminal allegation. Impeachment is about Trump being a poo-poo head. That really seems to, that's the case. And as we'll see today, the Democrats keep broadening out the case.
I'm not sure what to say about the poo-poo head thing. That was a little weird. But you can see what he's doing there. He's trying to tell you that it's not quid pro quo. So they're trying to change it. They're trying to change the story. There's no theory of impeachment. The theory of impeachment keeps changing, right? That's what he's trying to frame this whole thing as. Now, let's put aside the fact that Mick Mulvaney admitted to quid pro quo on live TV. And let's just focus on the very first thing that led to Nancy Pelosi's announcement that she would impeach the president. This is U.S. Code 872, called Extortion Officers or Employees of the United States. It says, quote, whoever being an officer or employee of the United States or any department of or agency thereof, or representing himself to be or assuming to act as such under color or pretense or of office or employment, commits or attempts an act of extortion shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. So that's what the law states. You cannot extort. Like, you cannot have foreign governments investigate your political opponents for your own personal advantage. So what they do is they try to reframe it as, oh, he's not investigating Biden. Trump was actually investigating corruption. But that's just not what the transcript said. There's no justification for that. The justification said to look into Biden. That's what the transcript says. Now, on top of that, he's hiding 7 other transcripts, and the transcript that he released is also a summary of what the actual transcript was. So it's like, first off, we should subpoena this private server. That's the most obvious thing to do. And the most obvious response would be, oh, oops, we deleted everything on the server. I guess we're just like as bad as Hillary Clinton. You know that's going to happen. I made a prediction a while ago that they're going to destroy everything on that server. But that's the law. The law says that you cannot extort your political opponents like this. That's the law. That's always been the impeachable offense. And so you don't need quid pro quo, even though Mick Mulvaney admitted to quid pro quo. And obviously he's probably going to resign now, if he hasn't already. It was revealed in the transcript that Trump showed us that was the argument from day one, though, when Nancy announced she'd follow through with an impeachable proceeding. And it's the argument now. This whole search for quid pro quo and obstruction of justice is to determine if Trump should be tried for 1 crime or 2 crimes or 3 crimes. You don't need quid pro quo, though. You don't need obstruction of justice. You just need the transcript that says that Trump asked a foreign government to investigate Biden. Full stop. That was in the transcript, and it's clear as day if you read it. Put quid pro quo aside and obstruction of justice aside. That's the theory of impeachment. That has always been the theory of impeachment. That was in Nancy Pelosi's speech when she announced impeaching Trump, and that was mentioned by every major news outlet. It was the Republicans that pretended that the argument was over quid pro quo. It was literally a talking point. And you'd have so many reporters saying, yeah, well, but you don't need quid pro quo. That's because the very act of pretending that Democrats are running on quid pro quo and or obstruction of justice alone is a straw man argument. That was never true. Facts over feelings, right? Show us footage, right? Show us proof. Show us facts. You can't because they don't exist. I mean, the facts exist. The facts are in the facts point to the transcript, right? The transcript points to the facts. I don't, whatever metaphor you want to use there. But I think people are beginning to realize that Ben Shapiro just knows how to talk fast. And that's it. That's all he can do. He says words, but he doesn't really say anything good. He doesn't stand for facts or feelings at all. And people realize it more and more, like daily. Hey everyone, welcome to the live stream. We're in between segments right now, so I'm just going to read some comments from everyone if there are any comments at all. It looks like everyone's at work, which makes sense. All right, let's see here. Is there anything? There are no comments yet, which is totally cool. But if you guys have any comments, I read comments in between segments, and then I'll be able to chat with you guys. So drop a comment in the live chat, and then I'll respond to you. All right, let's get into the next segment, but let's watch that Bernie ad one more time. I'm going to run this over and over again.
Real change never takes place from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up.
Bernie Sanders' healthcare for all idea is gaining steam.
Free tuition, free college tuition, free tuition champion, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders added, the greatest threat to national security is climate change.
The future of our planet is at stake.
Sanders taking on Amazon.
Bernie Sanders has been consistent hammering about income inequality.
Nobody in America works 40 hours a week, should be living in poverty. So our economy is rigged. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt.
Sanders leading the charge to stop war against Yemen. The first time ever the Senate has voted to end an unauthorized war.
The fight against injustice has been the work of his life.
Jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. We are not going to retreat on women's rights.
Sanders pushing a bold agenda that includes protecting DACA recipients and comprehensive immigration reform.
You don't rip little children away from the arms of their mother.
A major announcement from Amazon. Amazon will raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. 350,000 workers.
Thousands of workers at Disney World will get raises. It's a victory for Bernie Sanders.
It's a victory for all workers. Brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work in front of us. If we are prepared to stand together, there is no end to what the great people of our nation can accomplish.
No, there ain't no stopping us. Fly without boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I'll be moving fast. Call me a shooting star. Let 'em know who you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. Time to show 'em who's in charge. Call me a shooting star. Didn't even get to cross. I said I'm moving too far. Get it done.
There we go. Let's try that one more time. One more time. Here we go. I've come you know what? Here, hold on. I keep messing up these videos because I have like so many different control panels I have to do. I'm the sound tech, the light guy, the everything here. So let's try one more time. Here we go. Awesome. That's good to go. All right. I've come across a lot of videos of Charlie Kirk getting destroyed by college students recently, and I want to show you one of those videos. Take a look at this because it's just really, really awesome.
Hello, everybody. Are your signs directed towards us?
Absolutely not.
No, okay, I appreciate that because we agree with your signs. So we just wanted to clear that up. So we're going to take a picture agreeing with your sign because I think it's white supremacy is evil.
I actually don't want pictures with my sign.
Okay, well, I can stand right here, which is what I'm going to do.
The sign. Thank you.
All right. Why? So is it towards us or?
No. That's up for your discretion. So.
Do you think I'm a racist?
Don't say anything.
Do you think I'm a racist?
Don't do it. Don't say anything. Not worth it. Okay.
So would a racist put on a black leadership summit? Is that what racists do? Can I not take a picture with your sign?
No.
I mean, you're on a public university.
This is my property.
Okay.
So I can't stand next to your property? It's very tolerant of you. How does one resist hate if you don't have people join you in resisting hate?
You're making her uncomfortable. That's the issue.
Yeah, so let's reject white supremacy. Only you guys can reject white supremacy. That's right. It's unbelievable. I hope you attend the event. I would consider that to be in the unlikely category at this moment. But you guys have a right to express your mind. So, can I take a picture next to your sign? Thank you. You're a hero. I want to unite to end racism. We agree.
That's nice. We're not going to.
Why can't I take a picture with your sign?
It's my sign.
Turn it around. Yeah. You can't have Charlie ever be seen denouncing racism. Do you think I'm a racist?
Denounce racism, so do it.
I do denounce racism.
Okay,
yes.
great.
Can I take a picture with your sign? Why can't I take a picture with your sign?
I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys can take pictures
But
of us all day.
hold on. So your sign says unite against racism, right? I will take your silence as agreement. So in order to unite against racism, wouldn't that mean that I should be able to take a picture with your sign? Wouldn't that be logical? Aren't you dividing against racism right now? So you're not even actually practicing your own sign? Good talk. We'll do that again.
Ah, yikes. So let's clear up some things real quick. So, yes, fuck white supremacy. We can all get behind that. Even Charlie Kirk can get behind that. I'm sure Trump would get behind that message. But, well, I would say maybe, wait, hold on. Trump might not be able to get behind that message. Maybe he might halfway get behind that message. Never mind. Charlie Kirk hates white supremacy, though. Clearly, he'd stand behind that message. The problem is that he supports racist policies and racist talking points. He's not a white supremacist, but he makes a lot of the same arguments. The point is that these college students would probably also hold up a sign that says, fuck Charlie Kirk. And funny enough, I'm doing another video where a whole crowd yells that to his face. So it doesn't make sense to unite with Charlie because he sounds a lot like a white supremacist without being a white supremacist. That's the point here. That's intolerant to bigotry. It's okay to be intolerant of bigotry because fuck bigotry. Therefore, fuck you, Charlie. That's the point here. That's the whole point. Right? So when Charlie Kirk goes up to these people, right? They start by saying like, "Oh yeah, we can all agree. We can all say, F white supremacy." But then he wants to hold his sign that says, "I agree with you." But it's like, you're the last person who would ever fight against white supremacy, Charlie. You're the last person that isn't a white supremacist. So it's like, you're really not the best person to, it's the same kind of concept with Democrats. when it comes to progressives and neoliberals. It's like when neoliberals try to stand behind, let's get real change done. Could you imagine Amy Klobuchar for a second getting behind a sign and taking a picture with a Bernie Sanders supporter that was holding a sign that says, let's get real change done? Could you imagine Amy Klobuchar saying, I want to take a picture with your sign? No, we're not going to get a picture with your sign, with our sign, because you're Amy Klobuchar. You're the last person that wants to actually get anything real done. You want incrementalism. You're a neoliberal, Amy. And so it's like, you're the last person who we want a picture with as Bernie Sanders supporters, as progressives. So no progressive would take a picture with Amy Klobuchar. Does that mean like we're not uniting with Amy Klobuchar? No, we're arguing against the platform that Amy Klobuchar stands on. And we're doing the same thing with Charlie Kirk. We don't like white supremacists. Charlie Kirk is not a white supremacist. He's not a white supremacist, maybe. I think, I hope. But it's like he's really close. See, he might as well just put that, like, just say it, dude. Just say it. No, I like him. I like the white supremacists. I support their policies. That's what he really wants to say. But he can't because, you know, he needs to pretend that he has this really good, you know, millennial vibes going on, right? Like that's his goal. So he doesn't want to come across too strong. He'll call Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. But he's not a white supremacist, you know. He won't condemn, you know. There's just a lot of things wrong with Charlie Kirk. He's not a white supremacist, but he's like a white supremacist. That's the whole point, Charlie. All right, we're back. So let's go to the live stream. I noticed we have a lot of questions. I just want to mention I'm not going to respond. I see your guys' posts. I'm not going to respond to them during the actual recording section just because those are the individual sections that are going to go on YouTube. So, but I do want to respond to them. So let's see here. Patrick Time says there's still no evidence that Trump committed any crime. All right, Patrick, here we go. Let's pull it up. So, I'll show it to you. Trump transcript call. Let's read it together because maybe you haven't read this part. Quote, I would like here, let me get the whole thing for you here so that you can see it. I want you to here, hold on. It's still, I'm trying to find one that's not like edited out here so you can see it. Where is the transcript? Where is the transcript? Is that it? Gosh, it's so tiny. Hold on. Come on. Almost got it for you, Patrick. Don't worry. Don't you worry. All right, while I'm doing this, here we go. Quote, the other thing, this is from President Trump, the other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution. And a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the attorney general, would be great. So let's be clear about something. Before I get into what your responses are to this video, to this part, Trump wants Ukraine, the Ukrainian president, to investigate Biden's son. That's illegal. That's illegal against Title 18, Section 872. The extortion policy. You're doing, why Biden's son? What? So a lot of things that are wrong here, and I'll get to each one individually. First one. You can't have a foreign government conduct an investigation for you. You can't do that. That's illegal. Full stop. Don't need quid pro quo. You don't need anything. It is illegal to to have another country conduct an investigation. You can do your own investigation. It's okay to also request another government to send in people, but you can't send Rudy Giuliani. And you can't have, unless Rudy Giuliani is doing the investigation, which he has admitted not to doing, you can't have foreign governments look into things. That's not allowed. You have to have your own State Department do that. There's a huge difference. And let me give you a perfect example of why this is strongly illegal. You can't go to Russia, for example. Imagine if I went to Russia, and let's say I'm running against Trump, and I said, hey, Russia, conduct your own investigation against Trump. I want to see if Trump has done anything corrupt. And they come out and they say, well, Trump, he was a murderer. He murdered 10 people. Think about that for a second. And I said, oh, well, he murdered 10 people. That is super illegal. That is so beyond illegal for multiple reasons. Number one, you're asking Russia to investigate. If you have your own government investigate in that foreign country and they come up with that there was a murder, that's a totally different thing. But you're asking Russia to conduct the investigation. And so in doing so, Russia gets to decide what they tell you. They do their own. They make their own conclusions. They gather their own evidence, and then they tell you what you want to hear. There's a huge problem with that. You can't do that. That's illegal because the information that you get is incredibly unreliable because Russia has political intentions. And so if you have a foreign government investigate a political opponent, there's a reason why the Constitution strictly prohibits that. Every other government in the world abides by this law. It's like the most obvious law. Don't let other countries tell you their own, investigation results and then believe them. Don't do that. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. All right, let's keep going. How to support a man that was cheated out of the election and then endorse the cheater. Yeah, I did. Yeah, so Hillary Clinton is better than Trump. I think that's an obvious thing. She's not good. She is a cheater. I will give you that completely. But Bernie Sanders had to endorse someone. He's a senator. He's a U.S. senator. He's either going to endorse Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. If you said that he endorsed Donald Trump, you would have a lot more to say about Bernie Sanders, wouldn't you? Could you imagine if Bernie Sanders endorsed Trump? That would be absolute lunacy. That would be lunacy. So, yeah, he kind of had to. Now, you can say, I have a problem with Elizabeth Warren because she endorsed Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. That was, in my opinion, one of the worst political calculations that she made. But she's a woman. I'm with her. All that jazz, How was that win for the college snowflakes? Maybe that's referring to something I'm missing. Unite against racism. Yeah, so I agree. We should unite against racism, but I'm not going to promote voices that actually don't unite against racism. So, I'm sure there were so many members of the KKK that said unite against racism. There are a lot of members of the KKK that say unite against racism. So Don't take pictures with KKK members. That's a pro tip. All right. Bernie 2020. Absolutely music. You're absolutely right. Patrick's time. Where are all the white supremacists you speak of? Mostly, so it's a good question. There aren't a lot, like a lot of people do make them out to be like this really large group. They're not. They're a very small portion, but white supremacists are primarily like on 4chan. So if you go to 4chan, you'll see a lot of white supremacists. There's also some subreddits that are pretty racist as well. So that's probably the best place if you want to find some white supremacists. Let's get specific. What policy? I think you're referring to the Charlie Kirk video thing I just did. So let's go over. So he's a conservative, right? He wants to get rid of. He wants to limit government. Let's talk about. I mean, he doesn't actually promote the policy because no representative will actually write up the legal law to destroy Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. But if you ask Charlie Kirk, I think both you and I can agree that Charlie Kirk would support getting rid of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and so on. Is that racist? Yes. Why? Because that primarily targets the black community. And this is not, and you're basically saying like rich people. I mean, here's the thing. If you're promoting policies that promote rich people, you're simultaneously promoting policies that promote white people. And this is not a racist thing to say because this is a matter of demographics, right? I'm just stating facts about demographics. But when you have policies that promote one demographic over the other strongly, you can argue that there's inherent racism, or at least systemic racism. Is it racist outright? Not necessarily. I wouldn't say so. But systemic racism, absolutely. All right. So Hunter Hayes says, I have a picture with Amy Klobuchar. She is my senator. I'm sorry. That's a real shame. Wow, I would hate to have Amy Klobuchar as my senator. Is she my senator? I don't know. No, she's not my senator. I'm in California. She's in like, I don't know, Minnesota. No, she's not. I don't know what she's at. Yeah, you poor thing. I'm so sorry. All right, next up, Patrick Times. This is nothing but feelings. I quoted a transcript. I gave you specific facts and policies. Maybe you can quote me on what feeling I gave. I mean, I give feelings too. It's okay to give feelings too, but it's not like I didn't give facts. I didn't not quote Trump's. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something there. Yeah, Patrick is a troll. I totally agree. You're in the wrong channel, man. You might want to go back to like Steven Crowder. If he's still alive, I don't know. He's or not alive. I should say if he's still relevant enough. Cold Feet Crowder. Darn it! If I had some socks, I'd give you some. But yeah, go back to Crowder. All right. If Democrats had evidence of a crime, they would have held a vote for impeachment. That's not true, Patrick. So you have to understand the difference between establishment Democrats and progressive Democrats. Establishment Democrats do not actually, they're neoliberals. They don't want to impeach Trump. They're anti-Trump. So if you ever reference people who are like just anti-Trump no matter what Trump does. For example, Trump pulls out troops from Afghanistan that one time. There were a lot of Democrats that were against that. And it's like, no, that was a good policy. That was something that Trump did that was good. Pulling out troops is a good idea. Almost 99% of the time, unless it's northern Syria. It's like the last place. Then you can have a different conversation. And I think that's you might even still be able to make the case that it's reasonable to pull out troops. But neoliberals will not follow through with democratic policies. And so to give you an example, the head of the Ways and Means Committee in the House refuses to subpoena Trump's tax returns. He could if he wanted to. Ask yourself this simple question. Why isn't he? Why isn't Nancy Pelosi voting for impeachment? It's like the most obvious thing that you should do, right? You want to impeach someone, you hold a vote. So it's not like they don't have evidence, because you don't need evidence to run a vote. You need evidence for the Senate. The Senate is supposed to see the evidence. The Senate is supposed to hold a hearing. The House is supposed to vote. And so you don't need evidence. You don't even need evidence. And so they can wrap up the vote right now if they wanted to, but they're not going to, because it's Nancy Pelosi. She has said for 5 years now that she will not ever support impeaching Trump. Not 5 years, maybe 4 years, before Trump was even elected. She's been adamantly saying that. And so, of course, she's hesitant to do a vote because, impeaching a president really affects the military industrial complex, the pharmaceutical industry, like that sort of thing can really hurt the economy. And Nancy Pelosi is very hesitant of doing that. So there's a lot of donation stuff going on there, I would argue. Follow the money. All right, so Patrick says Trump exposing corruption is not a crime. Yes, it is if you have a foreign government investigate your political opponent. So what's important is that you can expose corruption. You're absolutely right. So long as you do it with your own freaking government. You're the head of the executive branch. That means you run the DOJ. You run the CIA. You run the FBI. So have them do the investigation, not the foreign governments, them. And then we can talk about maybe there's some legality there. Otherwise, it's totally illegal. So that's total bullcrap. It's not the exposing corruption part that's illegal. It's the fact that he had a foreign government do that. That's illegal. That's totally illegal. HRC campaign paid for dirt sourced from unnamed Russians. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So Hillary Clinton was trying to get dirt on Trump through Russia. I think that there should be an investigation in that. So by the same logic, by the same token, Hillary Clinton should be, if she was elected, I think there'd be a really good reason to impeach her. So you're absolutely right, Patrick. That doesn't make Trump innocent. That makes Hillary Clinton guilty. So you're working the wrong... You're making the wrong points here. She deleted tons of emails. I'm with you there, bud. I'm with you. Don't worry. But you have to understand that it's not that Trump is innocent. It's that they're both guilty. I would say Hunter Biden is guilty. I would say Joe Biden is guilty. Right? They're all corrupt. They're all following money and they're all doing illegal things. Totally agree with you. But having one guilty doesn't make the other one innocent. That's not how logic works. Is that relevant information? Talking to Patrick's. Yeah, no, it's definitely not relevant information at all. Hillary Clinton. That's called whataboutism, Patrick. All right. How many KKK members are there nationwide? I don't know. I don't know. You couldn't name one policy Charlie Kirk supports. That's because he doesn't promote policy. He can't. He's head of the TPUSA. He promotes an overall agenda. And so he doesn't promote policies because if he does, you're head of the nonprofit organization. Nonprofit organizations are supposed to be nonpartisan, not bipartisan, nonpartisan. So there's a reason Charlie Kirk will not actually promote a single policy. He promotes an agenda. There's a huge difference there. Better than a Republican. Minnesota. Oh, Amy Klobuchar, better than a Republican. Define Republican. That's my response. You couldn't name one part. Oh, that's the same thing. Crowder has more than 7 viewers. Ooh. Ooh, that's true. He does. That's very true. He has more than 7 viewers. I would say 7 viewers is more than 0 viewers. By that same logic, you are irrelevant. So it's kind of shitty commentary, to be honest. But yeah, no, I'm talking Crowder is irrelevant relative to like all the other voices out there right now. Crowder is like getting mostly maybe a third of what, like, for example, TYT, or even at this point, I think Sam Cedar might be on top of Crowder, which is kind of sad for Crowder, not sad for Sam. Sam's doing great right now. Cold Feet Crowder ran from Sam Cedar. Yeah, that's why it's called Cold Feet Crowder. Hashtag Cold Feet Crowder. Hashtag where are my socks? Never Warren. Music says Never Warren. I hesitate on that a lot, actually. I would pick Warren if I had to. If it was between Warren and Trump, Warren. But if it's between Warren and Bernie, never Warren. That's my perspective. Minnesota and New Mexico will flip to Trump. He's right now less than 50% approval rating in both of those states. Trump requested Ukraine work with Attorney General Barr. That's not illegal. Yes, it is, because you asked the Ukraine government to conduct the investigation, and you had your Attorney General request that information. So the question is, did Attorney General Barr conduct an investigation? The answer is public knowledge, and he's already admitted to this. No, he did not do an investigation. There was no investigation done into corruption. So it doesn't matter. But on top of that, even if you do, there's two sides to this that's illegal. You can't ask a foreign government to conduct the investigation, number one. And you also can't investigate political opponents. You can't use your own government to investigate political opponents. That's not okay. That's not allowed. Right? You can have, like, you can make a case for that should be legal. And I think that would be a good case. And I'm not really concerned about that aspect of it. But you have to understand, George Washington, one of his most feared things is having foreign governments, interfere into elections. And once you have them investigating your own election into your own elections, that's illegal. That's extortion. That's problem. That's the problem. All right. Let's see here. You had a segment about the policies he supports being racist. No examples. I just gave you. I just explained to you why Charlie Kirk does not. You're right. I said policies. I would argue Charlie Kirk. So I should have said if I did. Okay, I will give this to you. I used the word policies. I should have said platform or agenda. So, but we're talking about, like, that's not even a gotcha. That's the most, like, oh, well, technically it's not a policy, it's an agenda, so got ya. That's not a gotcha. That's a, okay, so we're off by one little small subtle difference, which I would argue 99% of people don't understand the difference between, and they're also pretty comparable. But yeah, he doesn't support any policies that I know of, period, because he's the head of the TPUSA. He supports small government, with exception to big government when it's military and police and all that. So don't mind this moron. Keep rocking, dude. What do you make of Mike Gravel campaign? I mean, he's got ideas. He's a progressive, but he's not Bernie Sanders. The intelligence agencies under Obama spied and investigated Trump with zero probable cause, or evidence of a crime. Okay, so let me ask you, Patrick, why hasn't Trump done an investigation into that? Because that's domestic. That's a domestic issue. You don't have international governments involved. So why hasn't he had the DOJ look into this? Oh, because it's fake news. Obviously, he would have done that. So you have to choose between two things. Either Trump was incompetent and refused to investigate Obama's spying, or so there was spying and he's in. I mean, there's only one option here. He's incompetent. He refused to investigate. Oh yeah. Or the other one is he doesn't actually think Obama spied. He's just using that as a talking point, which is more unlikely. So I think he's incompetent. He didn't conduct an investigation. So Yeah, so Trump is in charge of the executive branch. Conduct an investigation if you have questions about, potential spying. Patrick. Barr is looking into origins of Mueller investigation. Okay. I don't know how that's relevant either. All right, let's get into the next segment. Let me show you guys a quick ad so that you can enjoy and know that Bernie Sanders is the only candidate. It's Bernie or bust. Hashtag Bernie or bust. Here we go.
Real change never takes place from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up.
Bernie Sanders' healthcare for all idea is gaining steam.
Free tuition, free college tuition, free tuition champion, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders added, the greatest threat to national security is climate change.
The future of our planet is at stake.
Sanders taking on Amazon.
Bernie Sanders has been consistent hammering about income inequality.
Nobody in America works 40 hours a week, should be living in poverty. So our economy is rigged. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt.
Sanders leading the charge to stop war against Yemen. The first time ever the Senate has voted to end an unauthorized war.
The fight against injustice has been the work of his life.
Jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. We are not going to retreat on women's rights.
Sanders pushing a bold agenda that includes protecting DACA recipients and comprehensive immigration reform.
You don't rip little children away from the arms of their mother.
A major announcement from Amazon. Amazon will raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. 350,000 workers.
Thousands of workers at Disney World will get raises. It's a victory for Bernie Sanders.
It's a victory for all workers. Brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work in front of us. If we are prepared to stand together, there is no end to what the great people of our nation can accomplish.
No, there ain't no stopping us. Fly without boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I'll be moving fast. Call me a shooting star. Let 'em know who you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. Time to show 'em who's in charge. Call me a shooting star. Didn't even get to cross. I said I'm moving too far. Get it done.
All right, let's get into the next section. Sarah Sanders is one of the only Republicans that supports Trump's withdrawal of troops in northern Syria. I'll give you a brief rundown if you haven't paid attention recently. Basically, we had a group of troops in northern Syria for the purpose of fulfilling a promise that we made to a group called the Kurds. Trump pulled those troops out the day after he spoke with the leader of Turkey. So the country, Turkey, wants to wipe the Kurds off the face of the planet. And right now there's a ceasefire that just ended. And so obviously if there are still any Kurds left there, if there's anyone in that region right now, the Turks are just going to go and completely wipe the Kurds off the face of the planet. Trump pulled the troops out, and Turkey has already invaded Kurdish territory before the ceasefire. On top of that, the Kurds were guarding the ISIS prisoners. Those prisoners have already escaped. because the Kurds withdrew the guards for defense purposes. And there might be some deal that the Kurds make with Bashar al-Assad, which is also bad. So I mean, that one's not as bad, but as ISIS just completely roaming free. So that's the brief rundown. Basically, every Republican has been against this decision, including Lindsey Graham. But for some reason, Sarah Sanders wants to defend Trump. She's like the only one who wants to actually defend Trump. Take a look at her weak argument.
You have seen the continued criticism that the president has faced from his own party in the wake of that decision. How is the president handling this?
Look, this is an incredibly difficult situation, and certainly one that I don't think we want any American president to have to be in. I've sat in the room when the president has had to sign letters to families and make contact with families after they've lost a child in combat. He said it earlier, and I've heard him say it before. There's nothing more difficult in any part of his job than that role that he has to play as commander-in-chief. And I think that the president is doing the right thing by looking at how we protect the American military. This is not an easy situation. You have Turkey, who is a NATO ally. You have the Kurds, who have been an ally in the fight against ISIS. Unfortunately, those two allies hate each other. And the president wants to be careful that we don't get stuck in the middle of another endless war. This is a sad tragedy of the Middle East. It's a never-ending tale of the conflict that exists there. We've been working hard to try to reduce that, but the president wants to be careful that we don't continue to put American soldiers in harm's way for an endless war. He has also been extremely clear that if Turkey releases ISIS terrorists, dangerous ISIS terrorists, there will be severe consequences. And I can assure you that the president will definitely follow through on that severe consequences for Turkey, and I don't think that's something they want to see happen. One of the greatest accomplishments that this president has had has been in his defeat and the work that they have done to defeat the ISIS caliphate. It's a major accomplishment for this president.
But for that very reason, Sarah, for that very reason, he is being criticized for what this means. In effect, bolstering ISIS. You've heard from various Republican senators, members of Congress, who have spoken out and said this increases the chances of an ISIS comeback and endangers the Kurds. So what is the president's messaging here? And what does he need to do now, considering that Senator Lindsey Graham and Van Hollen, they just introduced these sanctions. They said they're going to introduce them as soon as Congress returns. They're going to target the energy sector, the military. The president said he supports those. But what can the president do now as he continues to face this criticism?
Well, I think he's got to continue to do what he's done since day one of taking office, and that's be tough on ISIS, be tough on who our real enemies are, and not get lost in who that is. Because let's not forget, again, Turkey and the Kurds are both allies of the United States. ISIS is the enemy here. We should collectively come together and try to focus on ISIS. That's what the president has tried to do, and I think you'll continue to see him do that. That's why he supports the sanctions. That's why he wants to make sure we continue to put pressure and not allow ISIS terrorists to be released. And he said that he would go much further than sanctions and put even more severe consequences if that happens. I think, again, the president has a very, very difficult situation. There's no good answer here, and that's the problem that we face every single day in the Middle East.
So her entire argument was decent in the very beginning there, because she's making this argument that we should end the endless wars. Her overarching argument was that Trump wants to get out of the never-ending wars. That's a great point. The problem is Trump hasn't done that. If Trump had withdrawn every troop abroad, I'd actually be on Sarah's side here. But that's not what happened. We're still in all the never-ending wars. We're still in Syria, in fact. It's just we're not in northern Syria. So the most obvious follow-up question would be, why withdraw these troops first? And if he truly wants to get out of the never-ending wars, when will he get out of the other wars? And on top of that, why is he putting these troops that he's pulling out in Iraq? And he's adding more troops to Saudi Arabia to protect the oil fields, which, by the way, they're trying to protect oil fields in Saudi Arabia from Iran. Cenk Uygur made a great point. Iran is really far away from Saudi Arabia. Why do you need boots on the ground in Saudi Arabia and the oil fields? Why? Because they're human shields. That's what they are. You're not fighting anyone. There's no need for boots on the ground in Saudi Arabia. But when you have boots on the ground, then, you know, if you send a missile and strike the oil fields, you're going to also kill people. Don't do that. So don't strike the oil fields. That's the most important thing. Just don't strike the oil fields. You know, that's insane. So he doesn't want to get out of the endless wars. That's not what he wants to do because he keeps putting more troops in places that we shouldn't be. You know, if I were president, here would be the foreign policy. You all have 1 month to leave. So leave. All of you. If you're not in the US, you have 1 month. And we're done. We're done. You know? Like, why are we fighting ISIS? Because ISIS is going to, you know, commit terrorism in the US. Why? They're rebelling against Bashar al-Assad. Like, people don't understand foreign policy. You know, these same Republicans who make these talking points are the same Republicans that say, like, 9/11 was bad, but then support Saudi Arabia, who 9 of the terrorists in 9/11 were from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was the culprit of, they were the criminal. They were the reason why 9/11 happened. So it's this misunderstanding of basic foreign policy that Republicans have that lead. They think that, oh, hey, you know, pulling out of northern Syria, it's a good thing, right? It's not, because you don't understand what's really going on in the Middle East right now. You don't understand who ISIS is really fighting. You don't understand who Bashar al-Assad is fighting. You don't understand who the Kurds are fighting. Like, there's just so much that Republicans don't understand, that it's so easy for Sarah Sanders to make this easy, simple talking point that, well, we got to end the never-ending wars. So I think people really need to familiarize themselves with what's really going on in the Middle East and that we should not be involved. We should not be involved. We shouldn't be in Iraq. That's the dumbest thing ever. We haven't had a terrorist attack in like years now. And every time we do, it's a sympathizer. It's not even an actual terrorist. So, I mean, it's not a terrorist in the sense that they don't come from ISIS. They fly over here with the intention of bombing us. That's not a thing. And if that's the case, then, you know, let's defend against that. Let's not attack them. Let's not give them reasons to want to hate us. You know, we've been in Afghanistan for 50 years now. You know, it's really, what is it, 18 years? Yeah, 18, 19 years almost. 19 years, something like that. Why? What's the, and every time you ask like Newt Gingrich or Mike Huckabee, you know, what's the point of all this? They always say, well, we just want to be safe. And then you ask them, what does that mean? They never elaborate. They always just say, well, once we're safe. Well, what do you mean once we're safe? Once when the Middle East is safe again? Because the last time the Middle East was safe was never, like 8,000 years ago. Okay, so that's not going to happen, right? So stop. So of course, this is Fox News, where their advertisers include the military-industrial complex. So they wouldn't ask the obvious follow-up. That's why Sarah Sanders is a joke. She's a joke who can't make a good argument. That's her whole thing. All right, so we're back. We're in between segments right now, so I'm going to read some live chat posts and then play that Bernie ad for you guys one more time. All right, let's see here. Ivan says, here, let's see. He said, are other ideas welcome? Absolutely. So if you're progressive, conservative, neoliberal, incrementalist, socialist, communist, social democrat, democratic socialist, neoconservative, white supremacist. Your other ideas are welcome. I might trash on your ideas, but you know it is a debate forum. Yeah. So John Henry says, Ivan, your English is good. Yeah. So your English, I've read a couple of your posts, Ivan. Your English is really good. So keep it up. Patrick says the Obama administration approved the transfer of funding to the Islamic Relief Agency, a Sudan-based organization with ties to Al-Qaeda. You're absolutely right, Patrick. Good job. Yes, that's 100% correct. So here's the problem. We've had governments funding the wars in the Middle East for a long time now, and Republicans have this thought in their head that all Democrats love Obama, all Democrats love Clinton. That's not true at all. Progressives cannot stand Obama. Progressives cannot stand Clinton. And if you're a progressive right now, shout out to what I just said. Just say, yeah, I don't like Biden, or I don't like, Biden. I don't like Obama. I don't like Clinton. They all suck, and they all extended Reagan's initial foreign policy, which was essentially, let's arm terrorists to fight communism. And eventually it led to us supporting 73% of the world's dictators. So we support 73% of the dictatorships in the U.S. or in the world. The U.S. supports dictatorships in the world, 73% of them, including Saudi Arabia, Turkey. I mean, you go down the list, there's so many dictators that we promote, with exception to Venezuela. That's like the only one that we don't support. But there's so much talk around regime change, including with Obama. So they're all bad. Obama funded ISIS. Obama funded ISIS. That is the weirdest thing I've seen. I'm going to need a citation, dog. I don't know what you're saying. All right, so let's see here. Patty, go eat a burger. America funds both sides of wars in the Middle East. Both parties. Open your eyes, Patty. Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. We fund both sides of the wars every single time because it's nice to sell our arms. It's called the military-industrial complex, Patrick. I would look into who they are and why they love war, because it's a pretty obvious reason. Hunter says, I'm a progressive talk radio host in Minneapolis looking to start doing more YouTube broadcasting. We should do some collaborations. I'm up for collaborations. So I have, I think I should have my email on the link. So feel free to send me an email and we could talk about potentially doing some collaborations. Next, we have, let's see here. Lesk. I'm saying that wrong. I'm sorry, man. I can't say names right. Corporations support war. Support a candidate who says no to corporations. There's only one. You're absolutely right. Bernie Sanders. So, Patrick, I don't know if you've come to this conclusion yet, because you should, but logically, every single thing you're saying is implying that you should vote for Bernie Sanders. Join the club, man. I don't know what you're waiting for. There's only one person who's not taking corporate PAC money from the military-industrial complex. You want to end the endless wars? Or do you want to take Trump as your pick, who's taking money from the military-industrial complex? Raytheon. You know, of course he won't. Obviously he won't. Banks fund both sides of wars. Yes, absolutely. Ivan says, I know not a lot of American politics, but I like Trump. He treats Russia with respect, not as an enemy. So, yeah, that's actually really good. I think, Russia, a lot of presidents frame Russia as this bad country. And, I think you have to be very careful with foreign policy because, you have to come across as an ally to other nations. And there are so many countries that won't talk. won't talk to North Korea. They won't talk to Russia because of the whole thing with Crimea and everything. They won't talk to China because of their politics and what's going on with Hong Kong. But it's like, there's this thing called diplomacy. You still need diplomacy. You still need ambassadors. You still need embassies. Like, there are still diplomatic things you can do to improve relationships with countries like even Russia. And so Trump was like this outsider that came across as this guy who would support Russia. Now, does he actually support Russia? Yeah, probably. I think there's hidden reasons behind that, but nonetheless, he's trying to develop a decent relationship with Russia, and I think any other president should do something like that. And now you have people like Hillary Clinton who will claim Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian hack or basically essentially a Russian asset or whatever it was. I forgot her verbiage. But it's like, no, foreign policy matters. You don't treat Russia like an enemy. That's a bad idea. They're a major developed country. So there are some serious people in there who have, there are corporations. There are human rights. There's so much diplomatic things that you can, there's so many things involved in Russia that we should be protecting or defending against, attacking, but we should do that through strong diplomatic relationships. So I agree to some extent. You asked why isn't Trump doing so this is Patrick. You asked why isn't Trump doing an investigation into the origins of the Mueller investigation. It appears he is. Mueller time is over. Barr tab is due. Didn't ask why is okay, so it appears it is. No, it isn't. He hasn't conducted an investigation. There's no one actually conducting this investigation yet. So you can't say it appears it is, because if you're head of the executive branch and you conduct an investigation, that's public knowledge, because you're everything that you would want to make that public too. Like, hey, I'm doing investigations into Hillary Clinton, or hey, I'm doing investigations into Robert Mueller. You'd want to make that public, but there's nothing public about that. There's no one's come out and said that there's an investigation being conducted right now. So that's fake news for sure. All right, so let's move on to the next segment. I'm going to prep and I'll be right back.
Real change never takes place from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up.
Bernie Sanders' healthcare for all idea is gaining steam.
Free tuition, free college tuition, free tuition champion, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders added, the greatest threat to national security is climate change.
The future of our planet is at stake.
Sanders taking on Amazon.
Bernie Sanders has been consistent hammering about income inequality.
Nobody in America works 40 hours a week, should be living in poverty. So our economy is rigged. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt.
Sanders leading the charge to stop war against Yemen. The first time ever the Senate has voted to end an unauthorized war.
The fight against injustice has been the work of his life.
Jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. We are not going to retreat on women's rights.
Sanders pushing a bold agenda that includes protecting DACA recipients and comprehensive immigration reform.
You don't rip little children away from the arms of their mother.
A major announcement from Amazon. Amazon will raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. 350,000 workers.
Thousands of workers at Disney World will get raises. It's a victory for Bernie Sanders.
It's a victory for all workers. Brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work in front of us. If we are prepared to stand together, there is no end to what the great people of our nation can accomplish.
No, there ain't no stopping us. Fly without boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I be moving fast. Call me a shooting star. Let 'em know who you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. said I'm moving too far. Get to grind.
All right, let's get into the next segment. Here we go. Apparently, an Iranian oil tanker was hit by 2 missiles near a Saudi port. Now, this should be a really big deal because when Saudi's oil was attacked by Iran, every member of the establishment in Congress was saying the phrase, war with Iran, war with Iran. And we got really close to an assault on Iran from the U.S. for an attack on Saudi Arabia, the country responsible for 9/11, by the way. It's a confusing world that we live in, I know, but like, anyways, when Iran is potentially responsible for an attack, the mainstream media immediately blames Iran and runs the headline for weeks. But when Iran is attacked, you don't hear a peep. You don't hear a thing. That's because the media wants you to think that Iran is the enemy and Saudi Arabia is the victim. Saudi Arabia, after all, gives us really good oil deals. And listen, they buy our weapons. They buy our weapons. Right? When they go to war, it's a great deal for our military industrial complex. So we'll defend Saudi Arabia for anything, right? Anyways, take a look at this article about the attack on Iran. This is an attack on Iran from Saudi Arabia. And take a look at how much effort is made to question if Saudi Arabia is really responsible for the attack. And by the way, this was posted by CNN. And I have this guy right now. I'm currently on a live stream. I have a person who's trying to tell me that I'll believe anything that CNN says. I'm about to criticize a CNN article. Let's go. All right, so this reads, an oil tanker belonging to the National Iranian Oil Company was hit and damaged by 2 missiles on Friday, Iranian state news IRNA reported. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you guys so you can see. There we go. All right, the missiles were probably fired from Saudi soil. Saheb Sadeghi, head of the public relations and of the National Iranian Tanker Company, told state-run Press TV. Reports that the missiles were fired from Saudi territory were later dismissed by NIOC, as reported by IRNA. It's kind of hard to read. Iran has not offered any publicly available evidence of the incident. The ship is still moving and traveling south, according to the tracking service Marine Traffic. So notice what they just did there. They said Iran has not offered any publicly available evidence of the incident. So when Iran potentially attacks any tanker, any oil ship or anything, right? It's like, it was Iran. It was Iran. Instantly. They'll jump on it like crazy. CNN will jump on it. But hey, we don't have any evidence. We don't have any evidence. So no Iranian government officials have blamed the attack on any side at this stage. But that's because they're conducting an investigation. And so they come across as like, oh, they're conducting an investigation, so it looks like no one's really guilty, so it doesn't, shh. Commenting on the incident, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Abbas, I'm going to say that wrong, I'm not even going to try, said according to the semi-official Fars news agency, quote, those behind this dangerous adventurism are responsible for the consequences of such act. The tanker was 60 miles from the Saudi port. This is really important. The tanker was 60 miles from the Saudi port of Jeddah on the Red Sea when the incident occurred, damaging its body, IRNA reported. According to the news service, the resulting explosion caused oil to leak into the Red Sea. Iran's Press TV also tweeted Friday, quote, report, explosion on Iranian tanker has set vessel on fire near Saudi port of Jeddah. So notice what they did there and what they didn't do. That was a decent report, okay? So don't get me wrong, that was how you should report whenever a tanker or an oil tanker is bombed, okay? But every time an oil tanker is bombed that's not Iran, that's not from Iran, it was Iran. It's Iran. Immediately. it's Iran. And then when the investigation is actually thoroughly conducted, there's no proof that it was Iran. That's where we are right now. That's the state that our government's at. So we'll gladly blame Iran every time it could be potentially them. But every time it could be potentially Saudi Arabia, we turn our blind eye. And that's exactly what happened with 9/11. If you remember, after 9/11, we freaked out and we started blaming terrorists and we went to war, but not on Saudi Arabia. We thought that there were nukes in Iraq. We went there, and it turned out that intelligence agency was right. There was nothing in Iraq. And then we did the same thing with Afghanistan. We were trying to find Saddam Hussein. There was so many different things that we blamed 9/11 on, but it was never the people who were the actual country that was involved with 9/11. It was never Saudi Arabia. Oh, our dear beloved ally Saudi Arabia. They would never do such a thing, even though we have evidence that suggests 100% that they were all from, or at least 9 of them, I think it was, were from Saudi Arabia. That's where we're at right now, guys. That's where we're at. That's, and so keep in mind, to give you some more modern news here, Saudi Arabian oil fields were bombed. We sent troops there. And Cenk Uygur made a really good point. That location is very far from any conflict other than being bombed by missiles from Iran once. So we're sending troops, boots on the ground, so that if Iran does it again, they're going to have to kill ourselves. Who does that? Who does that? Like, let me put this equivalently. Imagine you go to Saudi Arabia, the country that executes people in public. Imagine, you have a shooting squad in Saudi Arabia, and you say, okay, so we're going to prevent the shooting squads. Here's how we're going to prevent them. We're going to put our U.S. military in front of the criminals so that they don't get shot. You're going to put them in front of the bullets? That's what you're going to do. That's what we're doing with the oil takes right now, with the oil fields in Saudi Arabia. We're trying to protect oil fields in Saudi Arabia. That's our primary goal. We're trying to protect oil fields in Syria. That's our goal. It's just like, come on. I thought we were ending the endless wars. I don't know. But war with Iran, Lindsey Graham wants war with Iran more than anything. So the focus was on how everyone was okay on the ship that was attacked, and how it was just a small little leak. It was just a small little leak, 2 missiles, whatever, little leak. It was just a little leak. The crew was safe. Basically, what CNN is trying to say is, yeah, maybe Saudi Arabia did it, but nothing bad really happened. Everything's good. It probably wasn't even Saudi Arabia, even though it was off the coast of Saudi Arabia. There's no proof. It's not Saudi Arabia. How dare you? How dare you? It's probably Iran. Right? Iran probably attacked themselves. So when no proof of Iran attacking other ships is provided, the mainstream media, CNN, will jump on that like a hawk. Boom, it's Iran. But when Iran is attacked, they're fine. They're the bad guys, right? This is not getting the attention that it deserves. I don't understand. All right. Patrick's still here, everyone. I'm starting to think that he's a bot. All right. Ivan says, I don't believe the Iran attacks. I think American media lies more than Russia's. Oh, yeah. That's totally true. 100% true, Ivan. You're absolutely right. 100% right. Yes. So, our media is worse than Russia's media. And that's bad because Russia's media Russian media is bad, but U.S. media, ooh, which one's bad? Which one's worse? I wouldn't be able to tell you. Let's see. Flesk says, there is no actual evidence that has been shown, not that they would show their military radar, but anyway, yeah, there's no evidence. And because there's no evidence, I mean, even if there was evidence, though, of Saudi Arabia attacking, CNN would defend Saudi Arabia and say, they deserved it. They deserved it. It was exactly what they needed. They needed a good smackdown, right? Saudi Arabia is so good, right? They would love on Saudi Arabia for attacking Iran. That's how they'd frame it. But they'll defend Saudi Arabia for anything, right? Because it's the military-industrial complex. We sell hundreds of billions of dollars of arms to Saudi Arabia. Trump made that deal. It's like, of course we want to defend them for anything. You know, when you run ads on CNN that are from the military-industrial complex, you think CNN would defend the military-industrial complex? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Real change never takes place from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up.
Bernie Sanders' healthcare for all idea is gaining steam.
Free tuition, free college tuition, free tuition champion, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders added, the greatest threat to national security is climate change.
The future of our planet is at stake.
Sanders taking on Amazon.
Bernie Sanders has been consistent hammering about income inequality.
Nobody in America works 40 hours a week, should be living in poverty. So our economy is rigged. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt.
Sanders leading the charge to stop war against Yemen. The first time ever the Senate has voted to end an unauthorized war.
The fight against injustice has been the work of his life.
Jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. We are not going to retreat on women's rights.
Sanders pushing a bold agenda that includes protecting DACA recipients and comprehensive immigration reform.
You don't rip little children away from the arms of their mother.
A major announcement from Amazon. Amazon will raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. 350,000 workers.
Thousands of workers at Disney World will get raises. It's a victory for Bernie Sanders.
It's a victory for all workers. Brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work in front of us. If we are prepared to stand together, there is no end to what the great people of our nation can accomplish.
No, there ain't no stopping us. Fly without boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I be moving fast. Call me a shooting star. Let 'em know who you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. Time to show 'em who's in charge. Call me a shooting star. Didn't even get to cross. I said I'm moving too far. Getting gone.
All right, so I'm still trying to prep for this next episode because we're I can't find the video for some reason. I know it's here. I don't know where it is. Hold on, I'm almost there. Come on. Here. Chris. It's Chris Saliza. I know that. Gotta be one of these videos. Hold on. Where is it? Come on. Did he delete the video? He deleted the video. Chris Saliza deleted a video I was going to do a segment on. Come on, this is crazy. I'm going to have to skip this one for now, I guess. Wow. I'm going to do a whole segment on that. Wow, that's insane. Chris Saliza. I look like I'm floating here. I need a background. Here, let me add a background for you guys so it looks better. Let's see here. Ah, now I'm gone. There we go. Now I have a background. Now I look good. All right, that's good. All right, let's do a different section then. Oh gosh, this one's on Stuart Varney. I cannot stand Stuart Varney. Why can't I find that segment? That's absolutely annoying. Stuart Varney. Can I not find this segment either? What the heck? Okay, so this is Stuart Varney on free speech. So where is that? Where is that video? All right, we're going to take another quick break. Sorry, you're going to have to watch this video one more time for all my new viewers. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what it is.
Real change never takes place from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up.
Bernie Sanders' healthcare for all idea is gaining steam.
Free tuition. Free college tuition. Free tuition champion, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders added, the greatest threat to national security is climate change.
The future of our planet is at stake.
Sanders taking on Amazon.
Bernie Sanders has been consistent hammering about income inequality.
Nobody in America works 40 hours a week, should be living in poverty. So our economy is rigged. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt.
Sanders leading the charge to stop war against Yemen. The first time ever the Senate has voted to end an unauthorized war.
The fight against injustice has been the work of his life.
Jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. We are not going to retreat on women's rights.
Sanders pushing a bold agenda that includes protecting DACA recipients and comprehensive immigration reform.
You don't rip little children away from the arms of their...
All right, I'm going to end that ad real quick. Sorry, everyone. I know you wanted to see that, but we're going on to the next clip, next segment. All right, here we go. Stuart Varney from Fox News wants to convince you that free speech is dead, while attacking the concept of free speech at the same time. His entire point in this video is that free speech is dead because certain people on the left have free speech. That's his entire argument. Let's take a look at this video, and then we'll talk about it.
Now this. It is now almost impossible to debate policy in a public forum. Forget free and open debate. In the places where free speech is most vital, free speech is dead. Case in point, the prestigious law school at Georgetown University. Not quite so prestigious now. Kevin McClellan had been invited to speak about immigration. After all, he runs the Homeland Security Department. As soon as he stood up to speak, he was shouted down by an organized group of protesters. They were chanting, quote, "When immigrants are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back." Over and over and over again. 3 times McClellan tried to speak. They wouldn't let him. He walked off the stage. The packed house of immigration attorneys, lawyers, and law students were denied an exchange of views. There's no free speech for the Trump team. There's nothing new here. There's a long list of administration officials who've been run out of restaurants, accosted in the street, and denied access to any public forum. The left has been denying free speech to their opponents for a long time. It's gotten a lot worse. They can say what they like. No insult directed at Mr. Trump is considered out of bounds. No support for Mr. Trump is allowed at all. The left is free to shout down and disrupt, but they don't have the intellect or maturity to debate.
So Kyle Kulinski from Secular Talk did a great segment on this video where he focused on how Stewart failed to even consider the attack on whistleblowers and the anti-BDS movements throughout the US. But I wanted to add on to this. What Stewart is doing is he's claiming that right-wingers don't have free speech because left-wingers have free speech. For example, Stewart thinks that the protesters from Georgetown University who interrupted Kevin McClellan's speech were attacking Kevin's free speech. So by protesting, you are attacking Kevin's free speech. But understand the logic that Stewart is trying to pull here. He's claiming that protesters are attacking free speech. So what Stewart would ideally want is for the protesters to not protest. That's literally an attack on free speech. You can't pick and choose who gets free speech because the whole point of free speech is that everyone gets a chance to speak their minds. Just understand that everyone gets to speak their minds. Stewart is advocating for the exact opposite of free speech while pretending he's in favor of free speech. Stewart is basically commanding us that everyone should have a right to speak publicly without being shouted down. It's like Stewart believes everyone has a right to be heard. That's not what free speech is, though. Free speech says you have a right to say. You don't have a right to be heard, necessarily. I don't have to listen to you. That's the whole point. But you can do that, though. You can shout down people. Consider Trump, for example, who's probably the worst, most hated political figure right now. Can he speak his mind without being shouted down? Yes. You know how? He just doesn't attend events surrounded by left-wingers that hate him so much. He hosts rallies in states that love him and only does private dinners with rich donors in states like California and New York. If you don't want to be shouted down, you have a few options. You have options, though. Either you speak in front of an audience that wants to hear you, or you just suck it up and attend an event full of protesters and shout back. You don't force protesters to shut up and not be heard, because that's exactly the opposite of free speech. So it's a joke to think that Stuart Varney is actually advocating for free speech here. He's not. Free speech is dead because, well, free speech is not dead because we get to protest. That's the whole point. If you want to silence protesters, that would lead to free speech being dead. Let's read some live chat posts here. Only leftists advocate to ban speech. Citation needed, man. Like, facts over feelings, right? You're the one who said you like that's just a feeling. That's not true at all. That you need to prove stuff. You can't just say we want to ban speech. No, we're totally cool with people saying things. I mean, you can argue that certain people are against banning hate speech, and I'm against. I think hate speech should not be silenced. I think people should have the right to say the N-word. I'm pretty much a free speech absolutist. But to argue that that's a left or a right thing is not at all the case. That's not a left or right thing. That's a statist libertarian thing. Those are two totally different spectrums. So understand the difference there. Like this is not a left and right thing. This is a statism versus libertarianism thing. Let's see here. I want to skip all this Russia crap because I'm not interested. I'm not interested as a progressive. I'm more interested in just simple things. Simple. It's just no one cares about all the details in the Russia and the deep state, right? Like, just calm down, dude. All right. Republicans never prevent leftists from voicing their views. Is that why there's an anti-BDS movement right now? In many states, there are laws that prevent people from opposing Israel. It's against the law to oppose Israel. That is a straight up attack on free speech. Donald Trump and Barack Obama, to be fair, both will not allow Edward Snowden back into this country without a fair trial, even though he's a whistleblower, even though he should be protected by the Whistleblower Act of 1989. So don't tell me that the right wing is the only one that will let the left wing talk. That's not true at all. That's complete bogus. Let's see. Ivan says, if that is American version of violating free speech, then he doesn't know what violate free speech means. I don't quite understand that. Sorry. Maybe I need more context. Patrick says leftists can't debate the right on issues, so they shut down the dialogue. Is that what Cold Fleet Crowder said when he said he wouldn't debate Sam Cedar? Is that what Candace Owens said when she didn't want to debate Kyle Kulinski? You name me one leftist that refused to debate with a right-winger. I'll wait. Because I can name you every Republican at this point that refuses debates with left-wingers. Especially Cold Fleet Crowder. Hashtag Cold Fleet Crowder. Hashtag where are my socks? Ah, gosh, I need socks. All right. Bot says, if you know who John Durham was, why didn't you just say so? Oh, I'm not getting involved in that. What is the N-word? Oh, Ivan. Dog. Don't worry about it. It's a really it's a really racist term. I'll leave it at that. All right, let's get into the next segment. Let me play this this clip for you guys, and then we'll move on.
Real change never takes place from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up.
Bernie Sanders' healthcare for all idea is gaining steam.
Free tuition. Free college tuition. Free tuition champion, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders added, the greatest threat to national security is climate change.
The future of our planet is at stake.
Sanders taking on Amazon.
Bernie Sanders has been consistent hammering about income inequality.
Nobody in America works 40 hours a week, should be living in poverty. So our economy is rigged. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt.
Sanders leading the charge to stop war against Yemen. The first time ever the Senate has voted to end an unauthorized war.
The fight against injustice has been the work of his life.
Jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. We are not going to retreat on women's rights.
Sanders pushing a bold agenda that includes protecting DACA recipients and comprehensive immigration reform.
You don't rip little children away from the arms of their mother.
A major announcement from Amazon. Amazon will raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. 350,000 workers.
Thousands of workers at Disney World will get raises. It's a victory for Bernie Sanders.
It's a victory for all workers. Brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work in front of us. If we are prepared to stand together, there is no end to what the great people of our nation can accomplish.
No, there ain't no stopping us. Fly without boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I'll be moving fast. Call me a shooting star. Let 'em know who you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. Time to show 'em who's in charge. Call me a shooting star. Didn't even get to cross. I said I'm moving too far. Get it done.
I love how this guy, Patrick, it keeps posting on my live chat, because what he doesn't realize is that every time he posts on my live chat, it increases, like the YouTube algorithm grabs that and realizes that my audience is engaging, and that increases my audience. So thank you, Patrick, for committing to engagement, because now YouTube will recognize that engagement and spread this video like wildfire. And so now I have 8 viewers. I only had 2 before. Thank you, Patrick. Oh, hold on. Wait, before we get to that, let's start the video recording and then we play the intro. Here we go. So some right-wingers tried to make a club at a public university in Utah, and so they set up a booth and tried to form a club called Students for the Second Amendment Club. The problem was that these right-wingers didn't follow school policy, public university policy, and so obviously the school told them to take down their booth and that they could not form their club. Now, instead of attending to the rules and creating and soliciting new clubs, they decided to take the school's response as an attack on their free speech. These triggered snowflakes then posted a video about it to attempt to exploit how public colleges are against the Second Amendment. At least that's how this video has been framed. Take a look.
We are starting a club.
Okay, so we're event services.
Okay.
And we are walking around making sure everyone's scheduled tables are available, and we don't have this on our schedule.
So this is a public university, isn't it?
We have policies that prevent you guys from being able to just come and do it. The policies you have to go through the scheduling office.
So can you explain to me what the policy is?
It's the free speech policy. You can't set up a structure. You can walk around with your flag.
Okay.
You can't set up a structure.
Okay, and so what are kind of like? Okay.
Since they're trying to start a club, the way you can schedule a structure or a table is go through the club's office.
Okay.
Cassidy Tippett is the contract.
Okay.
So I have a question about that.
Yeah.
In order to schedule a club that says you have to be like registered, a chartered club, how are we supposed to start a club when it requires that you have 6 student IDs and it's just one person?
Yeah, that's through the club's office.
Because that feels like a turnaround policy in my world.
With them. Like if you are really trying to start a club, I'd go talk to the club office and see if they can do that. You just can't set up a structure.
Okay.
Which a table is considered a structure.
And so what's the consequence for like violating the policy?
They have to make you take it down.
Okay.
And if you don't, then Texas police will.
Okay. Good to know. All right, we're happy to put it down.
Yeah, you just need to take down the table and you're free to walk.
Okay.
And the way if you wanted to do a structure, if you don't have a club,
Okay.
Google UVU event services. It's a $75 flat fee per day that you have to keep.
Okay.
We'll provide you with a table.
Yeah. So we're starting a Students for the Second Amendment Club. Oh, okay. Yeah. You guys want to sign up?
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, we can put the table down.
I would go work with Cassidy in the club's office and see if she can get you chartered or help you get more members.
How's it going? You like freedom?
So this policy that the university is pointing to is a policy that every public university has in place, and for good reason. Basically, there are two rules that these right-wingers broke. The first rule was that if you want to set up a booth or structure, you need to pay for that space. It's like a tax. The point of that rule is that the school doesn't want to make all speech free. Otherwise, you'd have advertisers setting up 100 booths in order to spam their products. Public universities typically host career fairs, and what people don't realize is that those businesses that are trying to find employees are there to search for employees. It's not just students trying to find work, it's employers also trying to find workers. If these businesses could, they would all host a booth 24/7, but they can't because of school policy. That's not an attack on free speech. That's just a way of protecting public education from an overwhelming amount of corporate interests. So the fee is typically around $50 to $150 on each campus. If you don't like that, then don't be surprised when campus officers escort you off the campus. Like these snowflakes are like, no, no, right? The other policy that the lady in the video referred to was a policy on creating clubs. You need at least 6 students to form a club. That's not an attack on free speech either. That's just attending to the definition of a club. If you are the only member in your club, then you're not a club. If you need help understanding that, then pull out a dictionary and look up the definition of a club. The purpose of that is to protect public universities from special interest groups forming clubs on campuses that don't want the club to exist in the first place. On top of that, you can't get 6 people to make this club. You can't get 6 people to make this club. It's so hard to find 6 people that you'd consider asking if you could make a club with. Just one person. Imagine being that one person. Oh my gosh. That girl on the side of that video, she was like, hey, you want to join our club? Oh my gosh, think of this. Let this absorb. She's the only member of that club. Oh. That's so sad. Why does that make you feel like your free speech is attacked, though? Imagine asking that really sad question and then feeling triggered. Like, oh my gosh, imagine asking that question, that really sad question, and then feeling triggered because you don't get the answer that you want. That's just beyond sad. It's not an attack on free speech. It's just do your research before you go on college campuses. It's not an attack on free speech. Let's read some live chat posts. We got a troll from 4chan itself. All right, let's see here. I'm going to skip all the garbage. 7 viewers and 6 dislikes. Or 6 likes. I wonder who didn't like. Definitely wasn't Patrick, though. John says, okay, man. Ivan says, I have to go. Good luck, friends. Bye, Ivan, if you're still here. John Henry says, what is your goal right now, Patrick? His goal is to improve this YouTube channel by promoting engagement in the live chat feed so that the YouTube algorithm can grab this video and spread it to others, because algorithms love it when the audience engages. Thank you, Patrick. You're promoting progressivism by your trolling. Thank you. John Henry says, I got some facts too. The dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago. The boiling point of water is 100 degrees. Wow. So, Patrick, dude, you should probably consider what you're doing, man. You're promoting my channel. Here, while you're at it, Patrick, maybe you should consider donating to Progressive Politics. There's a Patreon link below on the link. I mean, if you're promoting my YouTube channel this much by spamming the live feed, telling the YouTube algorithm to spread my video like wildfire, then I would also recommend you donating money to my Patreon. Thank you. All right, let's get into the next video.
Real change never takes place from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up.
Bernie Sanders' healthcare for all idea is gaining steam.
Free tuition, free college tuition, free tuition champion, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders added, the greatest threat to national security is climate change.
The future of our planet is at stake.
Sanders taking on Amazon.
Bernie Sanders has been consistent hammering about income inequality. Student at Texas
Nobody in
A&M
America
University
works
was
40
slammed
hours
on
a
social
week.
media for
Should
being a
be
Trump
living
supporter. Her
in
name
poverty.
is
So our economy is rigged. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt.
Sanders leading the charge to stop war against Yemen. The first time ever the Senate has voted to end an unauthorized war.
The fight against injustice has been the work of his life.
Jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. We are not going to retreat on women's rights.
Sanders pushing a bold agenda that includes protecting DACA recipients and comprehensive immigration reform.
You don't rip little children away from the arms of their mother.
A major announcement from Amazon. Amazon will raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. 350,000 workers.
Thousands of workers at Disney World will get raises. It's a victory for Bernie Sanders.
It's a victory for all workers. Brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work in front of us. If we are prepared to stand together, there is no end to what the great people of our nation can accomplish.
No, there ain't no stopping us. Fly without boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I'll be moving fast. Call me a shooting star. Let them know who you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. Time to show them who's in charge. Call me a shooting star. Didn't even get to cross. I said I'm moving too far. Get to cross.
All right, let's get into the next segment. So Fox News got really triggered after a lady who wanted to order a cheesecake on Twitter was blocked for being a Trump supporter. This is the same Fox News that gets triggered when a gay couple wants a wedding cake from a Christian wedding cake designer. That same Fox News is mad that someone was blocked on Twitter by another user. The There are many more details, but I'll let this video fill those in for me. Take a look.
Student at Texas A&M University was slammed on social media for being a Trump supporter. Her name is McKenna Dahlmeyer, and she followed a fellow student's dessert business on Twitter. She just wanted a cheesecake. The owner of the business then called her out, accusing her of being a racist because she looked at her page and she saw that she had a Trump 2020 in her bio. McKenna Dahlmeyer is a campusreform.org correspondent and a student at Texas A&M University, and she joins us now. Hey, McKenna.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, you are so welcome. So you saw these desserts online. You wanted to buy a cheesecake. You reached out to the lady, and what happened?
Well, see, what actually happened is I hadn't even reached out to her at that point. I had just merely followed her on Twitter. So then after I followed her, she saw that I was a Trump 2020, or that I had that in my bio, and then she blocked me and posted that I was a racist. So I had no way to reach out to her and have a conversation with her about this.
Did you ever have a conversation with her?
No. So the next day, to kind of clear the air and set the record straight, I posted a video on my private Instagram story, and someone screen recorded it and sent it to Cheesecake Girl, and then she posted it on her Twitter, and the leftist mob came full force at me.
Well, you know, the facts are you're allowed to have your own opinion. You're allowed to post those pictures of being a Trump 2020 supporter. She's allowed to say that she's against that. But why can't we have a dialogue? Brian was just talking about Ellen DeGeneres and sitting next to President Bush. And our country, many people are blowing up about this because they're so upset that two people who don't necessarily have the same political views can't sit next to each other at a football game. How did we get to this point?
So when I saw that story, I was blown away by how parallel it was to my story. And it's crazy. In 2019, a talk show host and a former U.S. president can't sit together and share a laugh on camera without the outrage mob coming after them. So I think what's really dangerous in our political climate right now is just when we label each other with these false names and we don't have this conversation. If we have conversations with each other, hear from the other side, understand their point of view, then we can find common ground. Because at the end of the day, we're all Americans and we can unite behind that.
Oh my gosh. Imagine for a moment being exploited on national television as the exact embodiment of a snowflake. So there are a few minor details that were not hashed out that we need to address regarding this story. First, why are you trying to get a cheesecake by, quote, following a fellow student's dessert business on Twitter? How about you instead go to a bakery? What a weird way of trying to get a cheesecake. Like, imagine for a second, like you're thinking, oh, you know, I really want a cheesecake. I want to order a cheesecake. Let me go on Twitter. Full stop. What? Like, let's pull aside and let's have a conversation about the purposes of Twitter and the purposes of a bakery. So Twitter is supposed to be designed for, like, you know, having dialogue between left-wingers and right-wingers and, you know, different discussions on different things. And it's Twitter, right? It's supposed to be like Facebook, but pretty much everything is public. That's not the same thing as a bakery. It's not where you go for cheesecakes. You don't go to Twitter for cheesecakes. You go to a bakery. A bakery is a place that bakes food, like cheesecakes, for example. So you can get a cheesecake from a bakery. Did you know that? You're in college, right? Okay, second point. Why is this serious news? Why is this a serious news story? What's the overarching political agenda that you're trying to promote here? A student was blocked on Twitter because they appeared racist. And is that a bad thing? Are you trying to make a point that Twitter shouldn't allow users to block other users? Is that the end goal here? Now, I know that they mentioned that the overarching point is to force dialogue. But before we get into that, you're triggered because you got blocked on Twitter? Let's do a news story. Let's do a news story on that. Let's do a news story about that on Fox News. This student is actually using Fox News as a safe space. That's what this is. You're mad that people don't like your political views, and so you need to complain about it on national television, specifically on a network that would love to cry with you, Fox News. Oh my gosh. Now, final point. What was the main purpose of this video? They want to force dialogue between left-wingers and right-wingers. They want the right to be heard by force. This is the debate. This is the debate regarding the protests during political speeches at college events masked in a sad Twitter fight. Fox News gets mad when their dear leaders are shouted down by the left. They constantly frame that as an attack on free speech. What's ironic is that their solution is to force protesters to not protest so that the right can be heard. The irony is that they want to silence the protests, which is quite literally an attack on free speech. I don't want to be forced to talk to the right when I'm not interested. I mean, I have this, I'm doing a live feed right now, and I have this guy, Patrick, who's spamming and posting on my live feed. Should I be forced to listen to what this guy says? Heck no. Now, I do think that it's advantageous from an educational perspective to hear out opposing views from various political commentators, but I don't think you should be forced into that. People can just not attend events, and for the same reason, protesters should be able to attend events and shout you down. If you don't like it, then shout back. The best way to attack free speech is with free speech. If you don't like that, then you don't believe in free speech. It's that simple. Fox News is such a sad network. And the student who went on the show is going to forever have this snowflake moment on her record. She asked for it, though. I don't feel bad for her either. I want to make one extra point too, by the way. They mentioned Ellen DeGeneres and George Bush when they attended that event together. And the right wing and the neoliberals are all just like, oh, how could you attack her? How could you attack Ellen DeGeneres? Because Bush is a war criminal. He's a war criminal. So, like, it's like saying, like, why would you attend an event with Saddam Hussein? Would you attend an event with Hitler? Would you attend, like, no? You shouldn't. I think that's a bad thing, and I think that exploiting yourself as like, oh, well, I'm friends with Hitler, or I'm friends with Saddam Hussein, or that's a bad point. That's a really bad idea. You know, Bush is a war criminal. He killed over 100,000 civilians in Iraq over nothing. Over nothing. They weren't terrorists. I'm not talking about terrorists. I'm talking about civilians. 100,000. You want to tell me that's a good idea to hang out with Bush? Yeah, that's hilarious. I am going to try to sift through these comments because there are a lot. Let's see here. So, Brian says, Patrick, chill. You're getting triggered. Don't say that, Brian, or else he might think you're trying to attack his free speech. Careful, Brian. Brian says, Bush is a war criminal. How is it hard to understand? Oh, I know. Seriously, Bush is a war criminal. Patrick says, agreed, Bush is a war criminal. Patrick says, Obama was Bush 2.0. Very good, Patrick. Yes. Obama was just as bad as Bush. Well, you know, the Iraq War. So you have to understand, the Iraq War was probably the worst diplomatic thing ever. Like, way worse than anything Obama did. What Obama did, though, with the drone strikes was absolutely unacceptable. Don't get me wrong. Like, they're both war criminals. So I'm not, but Bush more so than Obama. Way more so. It's even that. I don't know. It's hard to say. Let's see. Bot says it means nothing to a racist. I'm out of context. Sorry. Patrick says define fascist. He says calling everyone a racist has made the term useless. John says if you believe that you might be a racist. Yeah, dude, we use racist a lot because Trump is a racist and he says a lot of racist things. You know, like imagine hanging around a KKK member and, you know, saying, wow, you're so racist that like racism doesn't even have a meaning anymore. That is not an argument. That's not something anyone would ever say. That's a silly argument. You're a silly person. Bot says, don't worry about the word fascist. It's a leftist insult for the right. True. Patrick says, sad when one can't define the words they use. John Miller says, a simple Google search of the word fascist may work. Dang, Ryan, yes. Or sorry, that was John. Brian says, Ellen ignores 100,000 Iraqi civilian deaths just to be in the elite cocktail circuit. Yeah, the elite cocktail circuit is real, by the way. I live in California, and we have, I live in Santa Clarita, and I get this magazine called the Elite Magazine. I'm not kidding. And on there, you have events where it costs like $10,000 to attend, and they're like they're royal balls or whatever. I need to be careful how I use that word, or else I'm gonna become a meme. There was this sunrise tea event where you can get your own tea and enjoy the sunrise. That's an actual thing. It costs like $50 to go. There are a lot of events in Santa Clarita. Just said it's California, you know. But yeah, you have the elite cocktail circuit. It's a real thing. All right, guys, I think I'm gonna wrap it up today. Thanks so much for watching. I'm gonna play the Bernie ad one more time for you guys, especially for you, Patrick. This one's for you. I might make some extra commentary. Leave any chat questions and I'll answer them in like 2 minutes, and then I'll wrap it up.
Real change never takes place from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up.
Bernie Sanders' healthcare for all idea is gaining steam.
Free tuition, free college tuition, free tuition champion, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders added, the greatest threat to national security is climate change.
The future of our planet is at stake.
Sanders taking on Amazon.
Bernie Sanders has been consistent hammering about income inequality.
Nobody in America works 40 hours a week, should be living in poverty. So our economy is rigged. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt.
Sanders leading the charge to stop war against Yemen.
The first time ever the Senate has voted to end an unauthorized war.
The fight against injustice has been the work of his life.
Jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. We are not going to retreat on women's rights.
Sanders pushing a bold agenda that includes protecting DACA recipients and comprehensive immigration reform.
You don't rip little children away from the arms of their mother.
A major announcement from Amazon. Amazon will raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. 350,000 workers.
Thousands of workers at Disney World will get raises. It's a victory for Bernie Sanders.
It's a victory for all workers. Brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work in front of us. If we are prepared to stand together, there is no end to what the great people of our nation can accomplish.